Most people chase goals with fire, then quietly burn out. One person discovers a simple shift that turns failure into steady, unstoppable progress over time. The room was quiet, almost too quiet. A small desk stood near the window. Papers were scattered across it, some filled with plans, some completely blank. A soft yellow light from a table lamp covered the space. Outside, the sky was gray. Clouds moved slowly, like they had nowhere to go. The person sat in a chair, leaning forward, staring at a notebook. The first page was full of bold writing. Big goals, big dreams. The person remembered the moment those goals were written. It was late at night. Energy was high. The heart was full of excitement. They had felt unstoppable. The goals were not small. Tiwei Yuhei, change everything. Build something meaningful, become someone better. And for a few days, it felt real. They woke up early. They worked hard. They followed routines, but slowly, something changed. The energy started to fade. The mornings became harder. The alarm felt louder. The bed felt warmer. At first, it didn't feel serious. Just a small break. Just one slow day. But then another day passed. And another. The bold words on the first page began to feel heavy. Not inspiring anymore. Just a reminder of something not happening. One afternoon, sunlight entered the room through the window. Dust particles floated in the air, shining softly. The world outside looked calm. The person picked up the notebook again. They flipped through the pages. There were no clear steps, just big ideas. The words were strong, but empty. How? The person whispered quietly. There was no answer. The goal was too big, too far, too unclear. After a few minutes, the pen was placed back on the table. Doubt didn't come suddenly. It came slowly, like a shadow stretching longer in the evening light. Maybe I'm not made for this. Maybe I always start, but never finish. The person didn't say these words, but they felt them. One evening, the rain started falling outside. Soft at first, then heavier. Drops hit the window in a steady rhythm. They had motivation. They had desire. They had dreams, but something was missing. They thought about all the times they started something new. Every time, it started with strong emotion, excitement, motivation, energy. But when those feelings faded, everything stopped. There was no system, no clear path, no structure to hold on to. It was like trying to build something strong on soft ground. At first, it stood, but slowly, it sank. They realized something simple. They had been chasing a feeling, not building a path. They waited for motivation to push them forward, but motivation never stayed. It came fast, and left even faster. Without it, everything stopped. That realization didn't fix everything, but it changed something small inside. A small shift. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet understanding. The notebook was still there, but now, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a question waiting for a better answer. The person walked back to the chair and sat down again. They didn't open the notebook yet. They just sat there, thinking. Not about big goals, not about fast success, but about something smaller, something simpler, something possible. And for the first time in a long time, the pressure to do everything disappeared. Only one thought remained. Maybe I don't need to feel ready. The room stayed quiet, but this time, the silence felt different. It felt calm, like something was about to change. Not soothingly, but slowly. The room stayed still. The soft yellow light from the lamp continued to glow across the desk. The notebook rested there, untouched, but no longer avoided. The person sat quietly, hands resting on their knees, eyes slowly moving between the desk and the window. The rain had almost stopped now. Only a few drops slid down the glass, leaving thin, fading lines. The air felt different. Not heavy like before. Not exciting either. Just steady. That was new. For a moment, They did nothing. No rushing. No sudden burst of energy. Just a slow breath in and out. Then, gently, they reached for the notebook. They turned to a completely blank page. The paper looked clean and quiet. The pen felt light in their hand. They stared at the page for a few seconds. No pressure. No big expectations. Then they wrote one small sentence. Start with one simple step. The words were not bold. They were small. The person looked at the sentence for a moment, then nodded slightly. What is one step? They whispered. Not the whole plan. Not the whole goal. Just one step. They thought carefully, not emotionally, but calmly. After a few seconds, they wrote another line. Sit at the desk for 10 minutes. Dad was Italiano. No promise to finish everything. No promise to be perfect. Just sit. 10 minutes. It felt possible. The person looked at the clock on the wall. They didn't wait for motivation. They simply moved. Slowly, they adjusted the chair, placed both hands on the desk, and sat straight. The room was quiet again. 1 minute passed. Then another. At first, the mind tried to wander, but the person didn't react. They stayed. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. When the time was over, they noticed something small. They had done what they said. That night, they closed the notebook. No pressure to do extra. No guilt. Just one small step completed. The next morning, the alarm rang again. The bed still felt warm. The room was still quiet. The person sat up. Slowly. They didn't think about the big goal. Only one thought came. 10 minutes. Day after day, the same pattern continued. Not perfect. Some days felt slow. Some days felt boring. But the rule stayed simple. Just show up. Just do the small step. The notebook slowly began to fill. The room also began to feel different. The desk was cleaner. The chair was used more often. Outside, the weather changed over time. Rainy days passed. Sunny mornings arrived. Days became weeks. The person no longer waited for motivation. Even on days when they felt tired, they still sat at the desk. Failure didn't feel as heavy anymore. If one day was missed, they didn't quit. They simply returned the next day. One evening, the person opened the notebook and flipped through the pages. It was no longer empty. Together, it told a story. A steady one. They were changing. Not suddenly, but slowly. The room, once filled with doubt, now held something else. Consistency. It wasn't loud, but it steadied. One night, the person stood by the window. The sky was clear. The glass was no longer covered with rain. They relied on action. Small, repeatable action. The kind that didn't break when emotions changed. They turned back to the desk. The notebook was open. A new page waited. They simply picked up the pen. Success was built in quiet minutes, in small choices, in showing up, again and again. Before closing the notebook, they wrote one last sentence. Discipline stays when motivation leaves. A quiet room, a small desk, a person sitting calmly. Peace. Progress. Maybe that is what real success looks like. If this story felt close to you, maybe your next step doesn't need to be big. Maybe it just needs to begin.